evening from India, friends. Welcome to the people who are attending this class live. So, friends, yes, we are going to discuss the interdisciplinary care practices as the primary level care. Myself, I'm Dr. Ravi Modali. I handle the corporate health programs for Recoup Health Inc. I'm an alumnus from KEM Hospital in Bombay, got board certified in lifestyle medicine, did a lot of insurance related work through India, and happy to be part of Recoup right now. And I have in my company a wonderful personality, Dr. Deepak Sharan. He is an alumnus of over 15 known universities across the world, and currently he's actively involved as organizing chairperson for the upcoming conference from St. John's Medical College in India, Bangalore. It is named Premise WDPI and Myopane 2023. He is also a chairperson for the Scientific Committee on Musculoskeletal Disorders at the International Commission on Occupational Health. Also, he presides the International Myopane Society, and he's also the CEO of Recoup Hospital. So that's the personality in my company. And yes, friends, today we are going to discuss the primary level, how the transformational thinking can happen. And to set the context, I would like to bring a reality among us that most of the patients, what we see in our OPD, primary level, they are mostly non-communicable. It's not about infections anymore. It's more about the stress, risks, the preventable harm, mental issues, which translate into some kind of a symptom. And most of the time, the medicines doesn't seem to be working well. And as I say that, there is a lot of clinical innovation in terms of research and new clinical streams which have come up is essentially what we'll be covering in detail. And yes, we all want to adopt the latest methods and more impactful ways. So with that context in the mind, I would request Dr. Deepak to share his first views. Dr. Deepak.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi, and greetings to all those who are attending the session. So today we are going to chat a little bit about some of the newer developments, particularly relating to functional medicine, lifestyle medicine, workplace health promotion, physical medicine and rehabilitation, wellness, mental health, naturopathy, yoga, and Ayurveda. So let us start by functional medicine. It's a field which is expanding rapidly, especially in the US. A lot of patients are choosing to adopt these approaches instead of the traditional approaches. In India, it is still in its infancy, but even though it's a part of conventional medicine, it's not an alternative medicine, but it is still in its early phases, even though the field has been around for a few decades. So how functional medicine differs from traditional medicine is that this is very patient-centric, individualized approach, largely trying to build up therapeutic relationships with the care provider. And instead of only addressing diseases or symptoms, the goal is to help people achieve optimal wellness. So here, instead of only focusing on the presenting symptoms and then investigating it with blood tests, x-rays, and then prescribing medicines, the approach is a little different. So here we try to get to the root cause of the presenting illness or symptoms. And we look at the patient's genetic past, events around the birth. For example, whether the person was born by cesarean section or by a vaginal delivery has a significant impact on the type of chronic diseases that the person may encounter later on in life. Whether there was increased antibiotic intake in early childhood, exposure to various biochemical factors, toxins, lifestyle factors related to sleep, stress levels, physical activity, and so on. and the various environmental factors or epigenetic factors are all evaluated in detail, and these are plotted in the patient's timeline. We call it the functional medicine timeline, where all the significant events in the person's history are plotted, and we try to get to the cause of the presenting symptoms. And then a treatment plan is made according to where the problems may lie, and the emphasis is on uh, non-pharmaceutical approaches by and large, addressing the person's lifestyle factors and whatever predisposing factors that were identified in the evaluation. So this is, in a nutshell, what functional medicine looks like. And there are several conditions in which present to primary care where functional medicine has a very significant role to play. Conditions involving neuroinflammation, gastrointestinal symptoms like irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, autoimmune conditions, thyroiditis, diabetes, infertility, other issues of women's health, cognitive decline and dementia, chronic fatigue and chronic pain syndromes, childhood developmental disorders like autism and ADHD, various types of cardiovascular and neurovascular syndromes, mood and anxiety disorders, people who are interested in longevity or living longer with optimal health, and chronic infections like fungal infection, mold, and things like that. So these are the various domains which are covered by functional medicine. So if you look at the type of conditions that present to primary care, this list will probably cover almost everything. Dr. Ravi, what do you think about lifestyle medicine? How?
Thank you, Dr. Deepak. I think I'll pick the story as what you have shared. In functional medicine, what you spoke about is about the biological processes which happen within our body systems, and you named varieties of conditions out there. Essentially speaking, all these conditions, we don't want them to come in. And that's the kind of the approach at the primary level. There is a preventive aspect, and there is a positive health promotion kind of a thing to actually prevent these conditions to happen. And though functional medicine talks about how the biological process can be clinically managed in the therapeutic alliance, in lifestyle medicine, friends, what we see is it's centered around the regular practices, what people will follow, maybe in the form of an habit or a response to a regular stressor, what would come, the choices what we are making, about where do we work, how do we work, and how much interest we show in the things happening around. And that's how clinically the definition of lifestyle medicine goes, like a medical specialty, yes, because there is a lot of a dose response relationship what we assess when a person says, "Acha, I'm craving for smoking, or I can't stop eating this food, or why this obesity, why it is coming to me." And there's a therapeutic level at which the lifestyles can be clinically managed. And it is essentially at the primary care level, for a simple reason being, most of these suggestions are not medicines, they are not procedures. It does not depend on a treatment within a facility. So these treatments should be available where people are working, where people are living, where people are traveling, where people are enjoying staying, maybe in a destination. That's essentially where lifestyle medicine needs to be working. So it's kind of beyond the closed walls of the hospitals. And yes, to name some conditions, the cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, or metabolic syndrome, or if I could say, how people can choose metabolic fitness, and build the aerobic capacities where the heart's ability will be taken to a higher level rather than the limited way. Obesity, how the body composition can be dealt with. We don't want fat to get deposited inside our arteries, inside the liver, and inside our muscles, and we don't know why, how the limitations would come in. So those are the places where lifestyle medicine works very well. And also, there is the latest evidences which have come in, mainly the longevity studies. It's been happening for over 60 years. The insights which have come, they are very clinically rigorous, and that's where a doctor needs to undergo a board certification. And the name is the International Board of Lifestyle Medicine, where the world-class training is available. I'm happy me and Dr. Deepak together actually are board certified from that discipline. And the elements out there come with the whole person approach. A person is seen as an entire whole. And then 6 pillars are mentioned out there. To name them, the whole food, plant-based diet plan as a predominant thing, physical activity and exercises. Sleep is addressed as a separate pillar by itself. Stress, which otherwise we might be thinking we should live with stress, but there are positive ways to work on the stress, to be on the eustress mostly and not on the distress side, and avoiding risky substances, how we get smart over the cravings for alcohol or sugar and be on the right side of health, and positive social connections. What are the creative ways in which, if we are among people, it will not take us to stress, but actually it resonates our company and enables all of us, especially in a workplace kind of a setting. And these are the approaches, friends, where it's not only curative, there are preventive and health promotion approaches as well. And there are specific protocols of how a chronic disease, we can plan a remission, and we can plan even a reversal if the patient has come early and the opportunities are very clear as per the clinical protocols. That's the bit around lifestyle medicine. I would request Dr. Deepak to tell us about the next few aspects about how we address people. Yes, I think let me address this point and this slide, and later on Dr. Deepak will take over. Friends, this Recoup entire person health score is something what WHO has defined in the form of well-being some almost 50 years back, and a lot of attempts have happening, different success stories. What we have done at Recoup is we have integrated all the good happenings, the proven practices, what it worked for people, and we put it together as 10 key elements, which reads as Recoup EPHs, resource consumption for health. We want use of positive equipment, fitness equipment, the food related resources more, and less of medicines. That's the intention what we carry, and that's how the resource consumption is spelled out. uh, Hospital-based services are relevant at the appropriate time, but most of the time in our lives, we want to have source our health with most other resources. That's what the definition of that. Emotionally and intellectually, we want to be on the right side and not get stressed out of that. And there are very simple questions what feature all of these 10 dynamics. The third one being community and family health, occupational and financial health, where we earn the income, we earn our means of living. It's very important, but we should not be getting stressed out of that. And we need to get onto the positive side and enable the economy of the company as well as the country. Understanding self-care. Friends, a physician-guided self-care is going to evolve more and more, and we have adopted in its earliest inception and capacity building to people of what are the latest ways, better ways of living. It can be nurtured among people. Physical health as it is as a discipline, environmental health, how we can manage the environment around us to whatever we can, and how we use the natural resources in optimal ways. Psychosocial health, habits and lifestyle, spiritual health, and higher self context. Friends, what we have done, we have built an additional module dedicated for women's health also in this entire person health score. So that's how this self-rated health assessment tool will actually give intelligence to the person as they score each of the 90 statements for themselves, and it enables a wellness coach to orient about how to understand health and capitalize on health promotion prospects, preventing risks, and if at all any pre-disease stage, how to understand them first, and earliest how to take the positive steps ahead. And that's the aspect of the Recoup entire person health score what we have adopted. I would request Deepak to carry forward with the next few aspects what we have adopted in Recoup system.
Okay, I will talk a little bit about how we approach workers' health in the industry. So we have a approach that we follow, which incorporates whatever we have been talking about, the functional medicine and lifestyle medicine approaches, uh, evaluating the health status of a worker and individualizing the treatment. So the approach that we follow is called the systems approach, and this stands for data-driven and evidence-based approach, where we give a lot of emphasis on collecting a lot of health-related data by using questionnaires, assessment tools, and various other modalities, using wearable devices to collect biometric data, so and the lab data. So all that is collected, and using artificial intelligence and big data, we make predictions regarding what is the likelihood of this disease or chronic health condition progressing if the worker or individual makes some changes to their lifestyle, and if they don't. So this is called a digital twin approach, where we map the person's health status to an artificial twin and make predictions using the newer technologies to see what will happen to a person if they make changes in their lives, and if they don't, so what will happen in 5 years. So what is the likelihood of somebody developing a heart attack in 5 years with the given set of risk factors that we have identified today. So this is very important. The second element is risk stratification. So we don't blindly treat everybody in the same way. Before we start any treatment, there's a detailed evaluation to determine what is the severity of that person's condition, what is the prognosis, how soon they are likely to get better, and what sort of interventions may be successful in that type of a situation. So we call it the phenotype score. And for chronic pain, which is one of the areas of my interest, we have developed a specific pain phenotype score, where we give points out of 100, and then based on the final score, the person is judged as having a mild, moderate, severe, or a complicated symptom. And each stage has a different set of recommendations regarding treatment and the likely duration of recovery. Disability prevention and integration is another important approach. So many workers who potentially could be still working usefully, especially those who have developed chronic pain, for example, back pain, or generalized pain, or they have mental health conditions, severe depression, anxiety, etc. So many workers in that situation have to quit. They cannot continue working if the facilities to allow them to continue work, integrate them back into the workforce, is not there. So this is a specialized approach where the workers are treated by multimodal approaches. Example given here is progressive goal attainment program, using various psychological interventions to get a worker back to work from chronic conditions. So getting workers back to the workforce is a very important component of this approach. Constantly improving ergonomic process is another thing. So every organization should have a ergonomics team where members from different levels of hierarchy participate in it. We have different processes regarding risk assessment, intervention, training. All these things are there, a part of this. Assessing the risk in terms of ergonomics, there are very specialized approaches now. There are ISO standards regarding how risks are assessed, whether the worker is working in an office or in a manufacturing sector. So now the approach is, according to the ISO standards, there are 3 levels of assessments. At a preliminary level, we use a tool such as ErgoCheck, where multiple risk factors are identified quickly. And depending on what we find, if there are more assessments required, then we have second level and more specialized third levels of assessment. So this is a systematic way of doing assessments. Earlier, people were just using one tool, Rula, Reba, and every worker was assessed just by those tools. So that is no longer accepted. Participatory ergonomics is also an important approach where the workers and the management and supervisors, they work together. We give them a bit of training, and then these people go out in the workplaces and identify the various risk factors, and they themselves propose the solutions. So the participatory approach can be used for all interventions, ergonomics in particular. And here the acceptance levels are much higher because the solutions are being proposed by the workers and the management themselves. It's not a prescriptive approach where a doctor or an ergonomist comes from outside and tells them, this is very bad, you should do this and you should do that. Also, a lot of emphasis on awareness building, education, and informed self-management for workers. And also knowing their work style. So each worker has a specific work style, which refers to how, when faced with excessive work demands, so you have a deadline to meet and your managers are sitting on your head, very stressful sort of a situation, how the worker responds physiologically, cognitively, behaviorally, etc., to those increased demands. So some workers will become totally slouched, they will stop breathing, they will become extremely stressed, they don't have a clear way of thinking. So how the person will respond as an individual to these situations determines quite a lot on whether they're going to develop any chronic health conditions like a musculoskeletal problem. So there are ways of identifying workers who have a poor work style and then making them aware using biofeedback, using electromyography or neurofeedback and somatic feedback and other things where the workers can see objectively using devices what is the level of the muscle tension, how they're breathing, what is the oxygen saturation and things like that. And then we give them training how to relax and how to improve those situations so that they are able to work in a more healthy manner. Also, there are specific intervention approaches using different protocols. We will not go too much into the details of that, but these are a combination of physical therapy approaches, psychological approaches, biofeedback, and then self-management with exercises, and total health or total wellness using a functional and lifestyle medicine approach. Promoting activity, physical activity and movement using what is called the Goldilocks principle, where you do just the right amount of activity during the working hours to have health benefits. If you give recommendations like the WHO says 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity per week, 70 minutes of vigorous activity, people just listen from one ear and take it out of the other ear. So these are not practiced by anybody. So using just the right type of approach, right dosage of movement and activity promotion at the workplace has been shown to have a beneficial effect on health and prevention of chronic diseases. And whenever such approaches are introduced in the industry, people want to know what is the return on investment. And there are very specific ways by which you can do these calculations. And whatever recommendations are made should be actionable and sustainable in the long run. And when a new employee joins, they have to be trained properly, and there has to be an emphasis on prevention of injuries or chronic diseases by evaluating the functional capacity and ensuring they are fit to do that type of work. And when the workforce is in place, having a surveillance mechanism where there are screening tools, one of which is called the Latin questionnaire, by which we quickly assess all the workers and identify a few vulnerable workers for whom more intensive surveillance and interventions are offered. So by such a comprehensive approach, we can expect to have a little better control over the increasing prevalence of chronic diseases and maybe work-related musculoskeletal disorders. So maybe a few words about the newer physical and rehabilitation approach, physical therapy and rehabilitation approaches. So in musculoskeletal rehabilitation, when workers have pain in the neck, pain in the back, and all these things. There are approaches such as neurofeedback, which are wearable devices helping to improve their sleep patterns, reducing stress levels. And this is something where you just have a little small headband and you can monitor it on apps, how well you have slept and what your stress levels are. And then strategies are given to how to improve these things so that they're able to work in an optimal manner. Posture trackers are there, where a wearable device is there on the upper back, and the moment the person starts slouching, it will vibrate or give you a feedback that you have to sit more upright. And it also calculates how often you take breaks, how many times you got up and moved around in a day, and all these things, which are very important to ensure that you meet the recommendations regarding physical activity. So during the working hours, if you work for 8 or 10 hours a day, 4 hours during the working hours should be spent when you're not sitting on a chair. So you have to be either standing, walking, moving around, doing some stretches and things like that, and not sitting down. So that is the current recommendation. And as I have mentioned, using somatic feedback, using heart rate, respiratory rate, oxygen saturation and consumption, and things like that, we can give feedback and improve those health parameters. Heart rate variability is another one for which is helpful for stress management, seeing how the vagal nerve function is, and also has applications in cardiovascular diseases and various other approaches. Now we have technology where software can track our eye movements, our pupillary diameter. So when workers are experiencing pain, many of them have fear of that pain. For example, somebody has bent to pick up something heavy and they got back pain, so they're always afraid of bending forward. So using these technologies, we show them images and videos at random intervals. And when they see something which is stressful to them, which they associate with something which has caused their pain, their pupils dilate immediately, and the device picks it up. And then we use the same thing to desensitize them and reduce that fear. And same thing can be also used for several mental health conditions like post-traumatic stress disorders. Using virtual reality, augmented reality, this we have been doing for a long time now, close to 20 years. We have been using it in rehabilitation for children with cerebral palsy, but it can also be used for other conditions, including chronic pain and mental health conditions, where you simulate an artificial environment using sound, music, and all these things. And many of these things can be used for rehabilitation. So the person does certain exercises by viewing these things. Games can be played, desensitization can be done. Medical infrared thermography is one of the non-invasive methods which looks at the skin temperature and helps us judge various parameters in a non-invasive way and see whether the person is getting better or not. So this is helpful for inflammatory conditions like, say, inflammatory arthritis, or if there's a stress fracture or a sports injury and things like that, or fibromyalgia, complex regional pain syndrome. So this gives some baseline information, and then we monitor it week on week and see whether things are improving or not. And in case of sportsmen, whether it is the right time to get them back to sports. And various technologies, apps, using health coaches, etc., to support self-care eventually. In a similar way, technology is used in neurorehabilitation, children with cerebral palsy, adults who have stroke, traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury. So here also virtual reality-based therapy is used. We use also activity monitors, which are wearable devices. You have it like a smart watch or something hanging like a necklace, where it monitors how many steps you have taken in a day, what is the oxygen consumption in a day, how many hours you have slept and how well you have slept. All ECG recordings, all sort of things can be monitored now. And these are used for diagnostic as well as biofeedback and therapeutic purposes. Technology has now come to a stage where just by a device is placed on top of a computer screen, and it just monitors somebody's gaze. The person is totally paralyzed and disabled. They are only able to move the eyes a little bit. and that device just tracks that gaze of the user, and just by moving the eyeball a little bit, one can operate a computer, one can write emails, one can browse the internet and do various activities. Using body weight suspension on a treadmill is a very important rehabilitation approach for people with physical disabilities, where the person may not have the strength or ability to stand upright or take steps. But with a harness and a suspension frame and weights, we are able to get them to stand up on a treadmill, and with the assistance of therapists, we make them walk. And among the various types of biofeedback, EMG biofeedback is very important for neuro rehabilitation. Hippotherapy means therapy on a horseback. So we can use a live horse, but that is a little tedious and requires a lot of expertise. But we have machines now which simulate a horse movement. And this is something very useful, particularly for young children with cerebral palsy who are facing various motor and developmental issues. And there are a lot of innovative balance rehabilitation strategies. For example, making a child balance on a skateboard, which is a very unstable surface, and we put them in suspension frames and harnesses so that they don't fall down. So like this, there are a lot of approaches that have been introduced in the past few years. And the advantage of this is that this type of rehabilitation is active. So the person has to participate themselves, and it's not a passive way where you're lying down, somebody comes and moves your leg or applies some machine on you. So those type of rehabilitation approaches do nothing to neuroplasticity, whereas these active, purposeful, repetitive approaches have shown significant benefits, and these are the technologies that are recommended in the modern rehabilitation. Dr. Ravi, I would like you to now continue with your thoughts of.
Absolutely. As you rightly pointed out, non-invasive methods, biometric sensors, user-friendly ways, and gamification in active treatment. I think this is what, in summary, what covers about the primary level interdisciplinary practices for people to just come, choose, and have it. What comes to my mind is, if I see India as a country with an average population age of 28 years right now, and the way we see the next 10 years, 20 years to evolve, I think all of us want to have a wholesome work life. I think this applies to many countries also, but since I've been working in India and looking at the macroeconomics, so a wholesome work life is everyone's desire. And usually the thought is, go think of a doctor only when you are not able to manage yourself, and that may be too late. I think this forum, which CH20 has offered to us, is kind of bringing it to the fore that positive health practice is needed at every stage and phase of life. And there are clinical ways of how to do it. Enjoyment is the way ahead. So happiness is a science, what we have adopted. Happiness for a wholesome work life, happiness at home, health and happiness at home. So these are the kind of thoughts which should be, we should be reaching out to people to give them this opportunity. And as we want to build our economy, right now we want to become a developed country. So one clinical aspect of science is longevity science, which I wanted to bring in, which works very well with the insurance instruments. If insurance is handling the financial risk, then longevity science actually talks about how the risks in health can be overcome, how people can live a wholesome life. There are references about health span. All of us want to expand our health span in our lifetime. Say 84 years is the life expectancy. Can we have health span till 82 years, 84 years as well? Not the way it is happening today, where we 40 years we have a good health span and then we only live life with poor health. Should not be the way ahead. And also these are the protocols where it can be customized to each company, to each group, say farmers. It can be customized to each occupation. We have a specific interest around agriculture. Most of the points which Dr. Deepak talked about, agriculture is one key profession where we want to get involved and suggest, what are the good ways ahead, as also the IT companies. And he also referred to about children who are born with disabilities and how disability reversal can actually be attempted with active healing. I think these were the points which were I was having in my mind. Dr. Deepak, why don't you talk about your brainchild, the premise conference, where most of the things what we spoke today, the culmination of international grade experts converging. Most of them are personally known to Dr. Deepak. In fact, Dr. Deepak has written several of these protocols in those companies. And we are seeing a convergence of international faculty at St. John's Medical College next month, September. The dates are between 20th and 26th. Registrations are open. There is a lot of academic feast opportunities for people to showcase what they are doing, and varieties of academic activities for 7 days. Dr. Deepak, could you talk your heart out about the conference?
So this conference is, there are three world congresses that are happening simultaneously. One is called PRIMUS, which stands for Prevention of Musculoskeletal Disorders. Second is WDPI, which is Work Disability Prevention and Integration. And the third is myofascial pain and fibromyalgia syndrome, which are the two commonest conditions associated with chronic pain, especially in the workplace. So these are all world congresses of the International Commission on Occupational Health and the International Myopain Society. It's a 7-day conference from 20th to 26th September. There are 2 days of pre-conference and 2 days of post-conference workshops. We have a total of 21 pre- and post-conference workshops, more than 130 scientific sessions during the main conference, 20 keynote speeches, and several symposia, workshops, technical sessions, roundtables, and so on. So some of the interesting workshops or the topics or themes that are going to be addressed during the conference are many of the things which we have spoken about just now. So how to address chronic diseases in the workplace by using these philosophies and these approaches of lifestyle and functional medicine, individualized assessment using risk assessment scores, and then very targeted management using the science of lifestyle and functional medicine is one of the major post-conference workshops that we are conducting. There are several workshops on risk assessment in the field of ergonomics, how to assess the risk of a worker developing a musculoskeletal problem in different industries, whether it is the office or agriculture or construction or whatever it is. So the people who have developed these tools are the ones who are conducting these workshops. And these are all workshops on topics that are recommended by the international standards. And there are topics like the Goldilocks principle, which I spoke about, where you prescribe just the right amount of physical activity so that the worker accepts it, and there is a beneficial effect on their overall health as a result of those physical activities. And there are sessions on long COVID, which is another very big issue internationally, especially at the workplace, where a lot of workers are still facing health issues, including cognitive problems, brain fog, GI symptoms, chronic pain, and so on. So there are a series of workshops, symposia, and keynotes on the current state of the art in assessment and management of chronic long COVID syndromes, especially at the workplace. And then there are several sessions on fibromyalgia, myofascial pain syndrome by the leading experts in the world who talk about what can be done by a primary care physician as well as in multidisciplinary teams, how to address these chronic pain conditions effectively and reduce the disability that is being produced by these conditions. Similarly, return on investment, there are multiple sessions teaching people how to calculate. So you have invested, say, 10,000 rupees on a specific program related to occupational health in your factory. How do you judge that you have received a return, whatever, 20,000 or 5,000? And so what is the ROI finally, which you can present to the management so that they are happy that they have introduced such a program? So unless this is done, the management always would like to cut corners and not really invest money where they can avoid.
Absolutely, yeah. So clearly, I think keeping the interdisciplinary spirit, which continues, I think everything what we do at Recoup is interdisciplinary. And the conference also brings in experts from different disciplines, from finance, economics, from engineering, from medical, physiotherapy, biomechanics, all of them, as also the audience. So the among the people who are registering are clinicians, HR personnel, employee health professionals, physiotherapists, nutritionists, academicians, researchers. So that's the spread what we see. So, I mean, happening in India, so, we should be capitalizing on this opportunity. And also, one point which occurred to me was all the original researchers who have developed the programs, who are conducting the workshops personally by themselves, they are actually offering their courses at a deeply discounted prices. So yeah, I would request people who are watching this session, please log in into www.premise2023.com, where you have all the details, and look forward to see you there as well. And wonderful having your company here as well. I see we are just 4 minutes away to conclude this session. If there are any questions, any comments among the attendees, please let us know. So as we wait for others to respond, Dr. Deepak, I mean, could you tell briefly about your approach to pain, where it's actually your vision is what you have, a pain-free world. Could you talk 1 minute about that?
So, chronic pain now is thought to affect nearly 50% of the population globally. So, it's a big issue and associated with a lot of direct and indirect costs, a lot of disability, and a lot of morbidity. The approach has to be a very thorough initial assessment using the risk stratification measures, which I mentioned. And then, based on the pain phenotype, giving them very targeted interventions, which often require a combination of physical approaches, psychological approaches, lifestyle medicine approaches, and so on. And following up with the management. Most of these things are most successful if they are offered at the workplace. And there we can follow up on the patient's recoveries. A lot of emphasis should be there on training and prevention of these things from happening. Doing risk assessments to judge the risk of a worker developing a musculoskeletal problem proactively instead of waiting for a person to become ill and then doing something about it. So proactive approaches rather than reactive approaches is the way to go. I think we are now out of time.
Absolutely. So let's wish all the participants in the entire world health and happiness. And we also have our way to offer. So we are welcome to listen from all of them. And we sign off.